Hello and welcome back to the Motivating Force podcast. I am Josue and this is Justin as always. And this Wednesday, I hope everybody is having a great first week of 2021. We're going to be doing a bonus episode on making history relate to you. So hopefully you guys enjoyed our video on Monday. But this one, we're going to give you a story about a philosopher named Zeno of Citium.
Yep.
Citium.
Correct.
He is also known as the founder of Stoicism. So as you know, the Motivating Force, as a business, we like to give a lot of philosophies on Stoicism. It's very well-rounded and it's not biased on religion. So we're not preaching to you guys on a certain religion, even though some of these might seem like they could be Buddhist traits or Christian ideas and philosophies. So we're keeping that umbrella of Stoicism to keep that structured lifestyle for everybody. So going on to Zeno of Citium. You want to start?
Yeah, man. So we picked Zeno of Citium to talk about today, covering making historical figures relevant to you, some of their life lessons that they have to pass on. Obviously, Zeno being an easy target because he brought a philosophy that, influenced us from... it's as strong of an influence today as Christianity is.
Yeah.
You know, there are major parts of the world that use this. It ties a lot of things together. Professor Forrest E. Bard says, Zeno argued that virtue, not pleasure, was the only good, and that natural law, not the random swerving of atoms, was the key principle of the universe. So we're talking some really deep stuff here today.
Yeah.
And this is what Zeno spent his life exploring.
Well, to start off with a little brief summary of Zeno, right? So we start back onto how he was a merchant. He was going to follow in his father's footsteps, right?
Yes.
And his ship that he was on, full of his mercantile, crashed and shipwrecked off the shores of Athens, correct? And after that, he went up to the shopkeep and was very depressed and sad about what he's going to be doing with his life, seeing how all of his family business is just in shambles now. It's all in the bottom of the ocean, right? What is he going to do? So he starts asking the shopkeep for advice. What is he going to do? And the shopkeep goes, you know what? Just follow that guy. He sees some guy walking down the street. So he's like, all right, pick up, go after that guy, just start following him. Turns out that man was Crates. So if you follow Stoicism and its history, you will know who Crates is.
Crates was one of the big influencers on cynicism, as we talked about, and not what we relate today as the word cynicism. We're going to put that up here on the screen for you so you can see the difference here than that spelling. But this goes into some old school philosophy that influenced Zeno. Right? We had the influence of cynicism and Taoism that really helped form Stoicism, what we have today.
Yeah.
So this being his teacher of the original arts of philosophy and exploring the mind led Zeno to create some of the most amazing work that we have today. And another really crazy thing to realize about Stoicism, with Zeno being the father of it, none of Zeno's original writings ever survived. All of the philosophy we have today that we study from Zeno has actually come from the people that he's mentored and some of his students, some of his disciples.
So like word of mouth, and it's like they stood out to them so much that they just had to remember it verbatim and pass it along.
Yeah, so you could imagine how strong of an influence that is, as we have it today. Imagine if we didn't have the Bible today.
Yeah.
Right? That's basically what you're saying. Like, imagine we had Christianity and then the Bible never survived and never made it.
Yeah, everything was just by word.
Yeah, and think about how that changes things. And to have such a strong impact that Stoicism does, it's amazing. It speaks volumes to a lot of the truths that are in it.
We brought up Zeno because there's this story about him that we wanted to pull out because I feel like this goes hand in hand with the New Year's resolutions that everybody's making, right? Zeno, like we mentioned, he was in this rough spot. He didn't know what to do. He was embarrassed of who he was because he didn't own his business anymore. He lost everything. He was very ashamed and he had what people might call social anxiety. And I know for those of you that are deciding on going to the gym or starting a healthier lifestyle or whatever your New Year's resolution is, this story can really like relate to you, and you can take the fundamental points from it and apply them to your life when going about your New Year's resolution. Because as Zeno was following Crates, his mentor Crates basically forced him to walk around town holding a bowl of soup. Why? Because it's embarrassing.
Yes.
No other
Yes,
reason. But then Crates started to follow Zeno, and then he realized he was taking these back roads. He was taking these little hidden passages because he didn't want to be seen. You know, he was ashamed. He was embarrassed. Yet Crates forced him to walk into this public area. And when he walked into this public area full of people and shopkeepers and everything, he's holding this big bowl of soup. What does he do, Justin?
Being the great prankster that he is, he
smacks it with his staff, knocks it all over himself. Well, not himself. He knocks it all over Zeno, right? Mm-hmm. So imagine, not only is it already embarrassing that you're holding this big bowl of soup, you now threw it all over yourself.
Yeah.
So Zeno ends up running away, right? But this is basically Crates trying to get him to overcome this social anxiety of, no real harm is being done to you. Yeah. Just because other people are judging you or they're looking at you funny, it doesn't matter.
Yeah, that was the quote from Crates himself. It was taught. He was saying, why are you embarrassed? What are you running from? No harm has befallen you, my little Phoenician.
Yeah.
As he says, right? And that's the truth of it, right? Because could you imagine, and this is what a lot of people are going to be doing with their resolutions. You're trying something new, or you want to try something new, right? And a lot of it, like we said, right? You're new to fitness, you're going to the gym, you're going to this foreign land, right? And it's of trades that you're not familiar with, right? Being the merchant's son, lost, stranded pretty much on Athens, a place that he was not from, around all these strange people, and had to become acquainted and fit in, right? And had very harsh lessons from his teacher, as you can tell, just knocking soup on you, right? And it's like, you're going to do this, right? And this is the whole point. This is the exact reflection that you can take to yourself. When you're going into the gym and whatnot, you're going to this strange land with new people, and you're going to see some really experienced people and some other new people, and you're going to get looks, good and bad and indifferent.
You're going to feel the pressure of those people that are experienced, that have been going to the gym religiously for the past 10, 15 years. And you're going to feel the pressure of like, do I fit in? Should I be here? Why am I here? Why did I pick going to the gym? And then that's going to make you not want to go. Yeah. But no harm is being done to you. What's really stopping you? Just, we're trying to get you to overcome that fear that you have and put away the thoughts that other people are judging you or whatever. That doesn't matter. Because think of the last time you judged somebody in the road. Can't even remember what they looked like.
Yeah.
So why do you think that they're going to remember seeing you at the gym?
Exactly. They're not. And a lot of that has to do with the protagonist syndrome that we have here. And not even, like I say that, but not even here in the States. I'm just saying that as a human being, we have a protagonist syndrome where we feel like we're important to people.
Yeah.
And by people, I mean everybody. So if somebody looks at you in passing, you're naturally going to assume that they're going to remember that encounter for the rest of the day. Here's the little bit of self-reflection you can take. Think of the last person you looked at in passing walking down the street. Oh yeah, you didn't even think about them all day, right? That person that did it to you, they don't even know you exist.
Not at all.
They're busy in their head thinking about that too.
And I feel like we're coming off so negative, like you don't matter, but you do matter. But just not to everybody else. You matter to yourself, like make yourself the important figure in your life, but don't let other people affect how you think of yourself. Because that can slowly bring down your self-worth, your self-esteem and all that. And like you mentioned, that protagonist syndrome, these Stoics in the early days, they know that humans as a species have, we are naturally self-conscious, right? They acknowledge it. We're not they're not telling you get rid of that altogether. That's natural human nature. You're going to be self-conscious. But what they try to tell you to do is practice not letting different things affect you.
Yep.
It's the whole point of this. It's that self-reflection, and it's like trying to better your mental state.
All these principles and things that we're talking about are directly related to Zeno's teachings.
Yeah.
So bear that in mind as we continue this journey of making these people relevant to you. And one of his fundamental teachings was exactly that. He said, self-awareness was a key principle to Stoicism. He believed that becoming more self-aware helps you be more aware of others. And in order for that to make sense with everything that's going on, as we talk about the protagonist issue that we have as, just the course of natural human beings, right? It's part of your natural instinct. He believes you must conquer yourself. And this is done by realizing what is and isn't under your control.
Yeah.
Which is why this ties into so much about self-awareness. And then that helps you see other people, because what is and isn't in your control should reflect upon, what actions you choose to make. And going to the gym or just even walking down the street, you have no control over other people looking at you or not looking at you.
Yeah.
Of course you have little things, you think, oh, I can shy away and hide and take these back streets with this bowl of soup. People are still going to see you if they want. You have no control over that.
Yeah. And then sometimes even when you're trying your best to not stand out is what makes you stand out.
Yeah.
That's what shines in a crowded room. But going about what's out of your control, it's really important to know what you do control in your life and when you're going about your daily tasks like that. Because there's a quote from Seneca that I love, and that's another Stoic philosopher, and it says that you suffer more in imagination than in reality. So when you start thinking about all those things that are out of your control and how they can affect you and how you're going to be judged and all this, you're suffering more right then than just doing you, being you in the moment and focusing on what you can affect, what you can change.
And see, this is why people take Stoicism so negatively nowadays, because we focus so much on making people these little unique special beings, and everybody has their purpose and whatnot. And Stoicism, with that bold letter print, just tells you right up front, you're not special.
Yeah.
But people take that so negatively, and in Stoicism, it's actually the complete opposite. As we're talking about here, there's the beauty behind not being special and what that means for you. And Stoicism focuses so heavily on that. And that's why they talk about the reason versus pleasure. And they talk about, things that are in and not in your control. Because if you just take that step back in life and look at yourself honestly, that's when you can start making those types of improvements.
Yeah, and there's also this, I love this. There's a giant freedom that comes with not being special. A lot of people think that they want to be famous. A lot of people think that they want to be a celebrity. But you don't, because especially in this society, you're going to have to look at every little thing you do. And that's going to feel like you're being put in this cage. But if you realize you just want to be free, you want to make your own decisions and not feel like you're getting judged on it. So thinking to yourself that you're not important like that you don't need to be famous, you're a lot more free than those movie stars, than those celebrities.
And taking that step down frees you from that protagonist syndrome, and that helps tremendously. So much. Think about how much time you spend a day focusing on what other people think about you, or what you think other people think about you.
Yeah.
And half of the people, honestly, don't even remember seeing you.
Yeah, that's why I really like that quote by Seneca, that you suffer more in imagination than in reality, because it's very true. A lot of people get put down a lot, and they start going into these downward spirals because they just start focusing on other people and what they think of them.
So here's the thing to put that in perspective when we talk about the word suffering. Okay? There's going to be a lot of meaning to this. And we make it really simple when you focus on Stoicism, because they define all these little things, right? And suffering is caused from the desire of what you don't have, or the fear of losing what you do have. So when you take that moment to really evaluate yourself and realize how unimportant you might be in the grand scheme of things, and the more you realize that nothing really has permanence here, well, there goes your fear of losing things, right?
Yeah.
When you start accepting that things don't have permanence. And when you start realizing how unimportant you might be in the grand scheme of things, well, again, there goes your fear of, getting things you don't have. It all comes around full circle when you look at the big picture of Stoicism, and you can really remove a lot of suffering from your life that way. We don't want to go to the gym because, we're afraid of the things that you don't have, right? So like you don't have the muscles, you don't have the knowledge.
You don't have the gym clothes that fit you just right.
Yeah, and you're going to be so worried about it that you never make that step.
Yeah.
Well, what harm did you do in the end of it, right? In the end of it all? You did more harm by just not going.
Especially, because then it starts affecting you and your health just because you didn't feel like you fit in with the right clothes.
And then you talk about some more hardcore stuff, right? If your New Year's resolution is to stop drinking, right? But you have that fear of losing your friends who are pushing you down that road of alcoholism and partying and just destroying your life, honestly. But you're afraid to lose those friends. Well, what value do those friends really have to you in the first place, right?
Yeah. They seem like some pretty bad friends if they couldn't care more about you trying to better yourself.
Yeah, you're going to lose a lot and you're going to gain a lot throughout your life. It's the way it goes.
And going about these New Year's resolutions, especially if you want that new year, new me kind of attitude, if you want those goals to actually be achieved, when you start realizing that if you can have that self-reflection that you need as an individual and realize what you need to cut, who you need to cut, how you're going to go about your daily routines, taking these little stories that we're giving you of Zeno, I wanted to give this one quote by him that you can really take with you because it's my favorite quote out of all the ones that I've seen. And it's, man conquers the world by conquering himself. So you have that discipline, you have that knowledge of what you need to do to better yourself. And that's what's going to push you to achieve those goals.
I know it's such a heavy thing, right? Like it's so interesting and weird at the same time when you talk about Stoicism and following these people around like Zeno, because it's inherently motivational and it's at the same time a little bit depressing.
Yeah.
Because it's so different than what we're used to. And it's like, it gives you these weird feelings because you're used to motivation being all happy and go lucky and like good things. And then you get hit with stuff like this where it's like, well, it's still super motivational, but it's the gritty real world application of it. And we find that so important here because it's the truth, right?
It's the most realistic approach of motivation when you think about it, because his story specifically, here we are 2021. And we're talking about this guy from 300 AD, right?
Yeah.
Who was literally coming from the bottom, and now he's here.
Yeah.
He was shipwrecked. He lost everything.
Yeah.
And he's known as the founder of this giant philosophy that we're talking about in 2021.
Literally everything, right? We don't even have his writings.
Yeah.
And here we are. We have whole books on it. We have whole teachings and philosophies and life stories, and it's crazy, man.
Yeah. I feel like this segment is going to be one of my favorites that we put out because of this exact reason. It's making history relate to you. We're giving you actual things that have happened, that have been documented or been known about, and we're relating it to now, because if we don't learn from it, we're doomed to repeat it.
Yeah.
So I really like that, and I hope all of you guys enjoy it as well. It's not always going to be Stoicism. It's not always going to be about religion. We're going to pick different topics, different eras in history to talk about.
Yeah, all kinds of different people who have just really interesting and unique stories. So to really take this away for everybody and focusing on your resolutions and whatnot, obviously for as weirdly depressing and motivational as this all is to tie together, I do have one little side bit off of Zeno's philosophies that has been used in modern times and by a lot of professors and teachers. One in particular being Jordan Peterson. This is going to be the last bit of weird feeling motivation I'm going to give you guys today. Zeno talks a lot about logos. Okay? And this is the cause and effect, right? We have cause and effect in the world, and it leads to a rhetorical appeal to sense of rationalization and logic. Right? That's what logos is. So we take the cause and effect and we ask some rhetorical questions about it and see how that makes sense.
Yeah.
Okay? And the easiest way to do it is using extremes of things and seeing if the extremes make sense. If they don't, obviously there's no logic to it, right?
Yeah.
And it's like one of the clear-cut ways to think critically fast.
Yeah.
Okay? So Jordan Peterson mentions, as I was doing the research on Zeno and everything like that, we're covering our ends here. He says, the West will die without the rebirth of logos. And he says, because it's what we're founded on. So I took some time to think about that. And there's a lot of truth to that, right?
Yeah.
You think about logos, right? And we think about cause and effect of everything that happened in the East. We wanted to get away from all that. And we used some rhetorical questioning and some lines of thinking like, well, what about these taxes and these monarchies?
Yeah, and the rise and fall of the civilizations in the East, and we need to learn to apply that logos.
Yeah.
Or else the same will happen to the West.
And it's that easy to just analyze history and be like, well, obviously this is wrong. We did this before and it didn't work, right?
Yeah.
And this is what Jordan Peterson's pushing really hard on when he talks about logos, because it's like looking at socialism, right? How many cases of socialism are there in the world? How many times throughout history have we tried it and failed and failed and failed and failed? Why is it going to work today? It's not. But of course, Jordan Peterson, being the man he is, it gets political. But that's just the easiest example I can give you guys of the application of it, right? The whole takeaway for using logos and getting you guys to understand what's going on here is that we need to take voluntary responsibility for the suffering in your life. And the easiest way to do that is using logos, applying it to yourself. You know, there's going to be a little bit of motivation here, helping you try to discover how to be that better person. This is part of how to do that.
Yeah, and applying that logos to yourself it's really important, especially now in our time, because a lot of it as well is branding. Let's say socialism, right? For example, they could just be branding it as something else, something new and fancy. But if you're not really thinking about it, you're just following along the herd, you know, you can fall into those same traps that happened in the East in the past, in different eras in history. But if you take a second to just reevaluate different things, look deeper into certain topics, it could really change the mindset that you have towards anything.
Yeah.
I don't want to get too specific, but it's reevaluating and applying that logos that you're talking about.
And like I said, it's all to bring home the point of you can make change in your life. You can do it. You can conquer these resolutions, and you have to realize these really shitty excuses you're going to give yourself.
Yeah.
And you need to understand that they're exactly just that. They're just excuses that you're going to use to get in your way to keep you comfortable.
Yeah.
Go out there, push yourself. Go past it, go beyond it. And I know a lot of motivation that you're going to end up needing is probably going to be from our other episodes where we're a little happier, more upbeat about it. But you'll get lost in that, right? Because you're going to have that spark, you're going to have that fire. And then when it goes away, what are you going to do?
Yeah.
This is when you need this type of information. You need this type of motivation, the real world grit that's going to help sustain you for the long run and help push you through it and help you accomplish your goals.
Yeah, and take that quote with you that I mentioned that Zeno said, "The man conquers the world by conquering himself." Knowing that you aren't that special, that you aren't going to stand out in somebody's memory, that should give you more confidence in the things that you are trying to achieve.
Yeah, man.
It should give you that confidence at the gym. You know what? I'm going to do my exercise the way that I want to because I know it's right, because you did the research, you know proper form for it. So why are you going to let somebody looking at you funny affect the way you're doing your exercise? At the end of the day, you're going to have more confidence if you keep that quote with you in the back of your head.
And if you still do want to be a unique, special individual, you'll leave a lasting impression on us here if you subscribe to the channel.
There you go.
We'll see that. We'll recognize it. You can also like the video while you're clicking buttons, right?
You can comment. We will reply. I promise you. You
Yeah.
can comment on that. Interact with us on social media.
Yeah, man. You get us on Facebook and Parler at The Motivating Force. You also get us on Instagram at Podcast TMF.
All of our videos come out Mondays and Wednesdays. From now on, Sundays. So until then, go and get